of the private sector took a while to get their head around, okay, what do we do with this, right? And I'm not saying that story is completely done, but I think that buy-in has happened in a big way. Today we are actually here to essentially try and discuss, I think what kind of Pramod started us off in, is how do we actually get this stuff out in a responsible way, in a safe way, to 50 countries or 100 countries, right? Now there are global campaigns that are doing this already. So we've got a fantastic set of speakers here, and I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit in terms of, keep it a little bit more Q&A if I can. But Pramod, let me just start with you. I remember when you started brainstorming this idea, and then we started writing this paper, and I think it's very clear that the paper is written by 3 very different people who are trying to put thoughts back together. This presentation actually is the paper, right? But there's one question I have, and I'll get to the kind of the choices and how do we actually package this and so on. But the one thing that we learned yesterday, right, in 3-4 hours of closed-door meetings with a range of others are 2 things. One is, we're thinking of this as a frictionless process, or actually a low-friction process, right? We're thinking of this something that you can essentially kind of download, subscribe, right? And hence, it's essentially an OpEx model. But what we learned for a lot of the countries here, so, yesterday Salima said something, from a Sierra Leone perspective. I remember Rosemary said something. This that countries actually want capacity, they want capability, and they want jobs. So I guess it's a slightly unfair question to you, because there's a political aspect to this as well, and a human resource aspect. How do we solve for that? Because that's not what we're solving for in this paper. But that's a real problem. So if we're saying is that, listen, there are 20 countries, whether you're in Latin America, Caribbean, Pacific, less than population of say 10, 20, 30 million, you should basically adopt this because you can get it fast. But they're saying, yeah, we can get it, but we want to build in-house actually. We want jobs. So when we have to go back to our ministries and we have to go back to our people, we're saying we need to generate jobs. So I don't know if we have an answer, but...
Okay, is it on?
Yeah.
Is it on? Okay. I think it's a wrong view. I mean, it's extremely silly to start building everything from scratch. The job, 2 things. One, focus on this. DPI is not solutions. DPI is about only underlying building blocks or individual components, the whole thing, right? Somebody has to build solution. When you build a DPI in the country, 1,000 new solution possibilities emerge. Who is going to build the solutions? Local capacity. So shift from supply side, job creation, to a demand side. That's a real argument we are making, okay? On the innovation side, invest, bring more startups, more solution providers, more like the speaker we have on UPI, right? People are building all that thing. That is like a, it's all jobs in one sense, whether technology, partial technology, whether it's marketing, product building, all that comes of shifted to from supply side to demand side. DPI is perfect example that will actually drive it, because DPI doesn't solve, it gives you the ability to solve. So DPI is only the underlying ingredients, it is not the final recipe. Somebody has to actually build, serve. So it's important that you build solutions, you shift all the jobs from supply side to demand side. You will create 1,000 more opportunities when you actually lay. It's no different from bringing internet to the country or mobile. 1,000 more opportunity bloom, and that's where you focus. Not silly developers who wanting to code it again and again and again. I wouldn't have wanted.
No, good. I just needed to get that out of the way, and I think to a certain extent you have, but perhaps there are different views on this in itself. So, if I can just take the DAS model, Pramod, it's a fairly new theory. It's not that it's not been done in different ways before. It's a fairly new theory. If I could just ask you, you've given us the logic of why this is important, the thesis, right? There are many examples even in our neighborhood where frankly, maar torke, we can't get something done in last 15 to 18 months, right? Pardon my Hindi. But this is a potentially attractive solution for adopting countries, for governments that frankly don't want to go through this in an RFP route, high capacity route, etc. What needs to be done now to actually operationalize this?
Yeah, so the 3 myths or maybe a misunderstanding that's lingering in people's mind. One, it has to be OPEX. It doesn't have to be OPEX. You can continue to remain in CAPEX model. Okay, so if your procurement says, no, I'll upfront buy the licenses for the, usage. I'm going to upfront buy for the next 5 years. Procure the software, cloud, and get ready. It is no different from what you do today. So it doesn't have to be OPEX. It gives you the option, like Nandan said, optionality. It gives you the option to shift, if you want to, shift to OPEX. Second point, this may not be amenable to all DPIs. I think that came up again. It may be some highly sensitive, like foundational identity having biometric data. Would this really work? Or complex multi-integrated environment like payment. Would this really work? But you know what MasterCard and Visa has shown, it works on the cloud. I mean, it's the cloud. It's a payment network. Payment networks always existed. It's not that you own and operate a computer. You know, you connect to somebody's network and make payments. So it's not that it's not been done before, okay? So I think it is a real question is that it gives you options. It gives you more choices when it is amenable. And we believe 80% of the DPIs would fit in quite easily. And you still get to do procurement. You have to do the procurement of selection of who is your ISP or independent software vendor who would actually provide you in a box. It's about in a box. It's about creating that, removing the unnecessary friction the development IT guys go through upfront and procurement guys go through. Just reduce that friction, but it's still in a box. You still have to procure though. Okay, there's no change.
No, I'm just to stay with the box in a sense. I just like to bring in Rohini and then Shalini. So there's a thesis for what goes inside of a box, but unpackaging that and rolling it out in variety of jurisdictions is clearly there's perhaps an incentive structure, but that's clearly the kind of mandate of private sector companies like yours. So one is, Rohini, if I could just ask you a broader question, is Microsoft seems to have largely now embraced the logic of DPI. You know, whether it's kind of Satya Nadella speaking in public, whether there's this kind of mobilization that we can do more with DPI, right? And frankly, that mobilization has kind of happened only in the last 15, 18 months, at least in a large public way, right? Could you just give us a sense of where companies like Microsoft, from your perspective today, see DPI? One. Two is, how do we take, say, the thesis here, put it in a box, and then unpackage it out? Is there some thinking that you guys are going through? Is there a process at play at the moment?
Thanks for that question.
I think it's on now.
Thanks for that question. Let me try a shorter answer first. I think from perspective of understanding the DPI approach, I think we've been on a journey. And even though in India, it's obviously has been going on for quite some time, and as an organization, we are in the Indian market, working across every sector. You know, we are benefiting in some ways from the digital acceleration happening in the country, whether it's the fintech world or healthcare world, etc. Right? So that's ongoing. But I think from perspective of understanding the approach to DPI in terms of what is in a box versus what a software vendor builds, I think that's where the little bit of a nuance lies. I think working with you know, Pramod and others in the ecosystem, there is a two ways to it. I think one is that there is a foundational set of DPIs, which you're absolutely right, one should not be reinventing again and again, right? And I think that's where different countries have to look at these DPIs and perhaps have in a box a software kind of model. But the distinction that is important to realize is that as soon as you go to any of the verticals or sector specific DPIs, then the question becomes is, what is the balance between having a product approach versus a service approach? And there was an earlier panel which was talking about you need to have the DPI, and I'll just call solution that is customized to the local context. That's where it becomes difficult as to say where is the DPI and where is the solution, right? And our ability to understand that nuance, I think, is evolving. I think there is better understanding, and I'm not giving a Microsoft perspective right now. I'm saying that I think as an ecosystem, our understanding of the foundational DPIs in terms of identity, payments, etc., and the protocols, it's evolving. But if you kind of, and we are talking to many countries globally, I think the ability to understand that beyond that, when you go to a domain, then what is a DPI and what is a solution? And what can be standardized to kind of have in a box approach? Because I mean, at the end of the day, as a software company, it is a hyperscale word. So if you are able to do in a box, then you are able to go global, and the whole economics of scale takes in. But I think that distinction of what is in a box versus what needs to be customized, and then adding to the point that you were making earlier, as to where does the local economy, local startup ecosystem, talent, etc., gets a play in it to be able to both build as well as build on and build the DPIs and build on DPIs.